I never thought my own brother would betray me in front of my entire family. My house, the one place I worked for, sacrificed for, and called my home, turned into the stage of the most humiliating moment of my life. And the worst part? It happened at a party that was supposed to bring everyone together. That night started like any normal family gathering. The house was decorated, laughter filled the rooms, and the smell of food made everyone feel warm and welcome. Relatives I hadn't seen in months hugged me at the door. Smiles, chatter, and the sound of music made everything feel perfect. But little did I know, behind those fake smiles and cheerful greetings, a storm was building, and it had my brother's name written all over it. For as long as I can remember, he has been jealous of me, jealous of what I've achieved, jealous of the house I bought, jealous that I stood on my own 2 feet while he still depended on others. I always brush it off, thinking he's just going through a rough patch. I never believed he could go this far. But that night, in front of every single family member, he stood up, pointed at me, and shouted words that cut through the air like a knife. "Now I'm the owner of this house. Get out." At first, I thought it was a bad joke. But when I saw the look in his eyes, the way the room went silent, and the gasps from my relatives, I knew this was no joke. It was an attack. And that's how the nightmare began. The night of the party felt like a celebration straight out of a movie. Strings of lights glowed softly across the living room. Tables were lined with dishes of steaming food, and music played in the background. Relatives arrived one after another, hugging me, complimenting the house, and telling me how proud they were of what I had built. For a while, I felt on top of the world. But even in that happiness, there was a shadow. My brother. I noticed him leaning against the wall, his arms crossed, his eyes scanning the room. While everyone laughed and enjoyed themselves, he barely smiled. Every time someone praised the house or congratulated me, I saw his jaw tighten just a little more. It was as if each compliment to me was an insult to him. Still, I tried to ignore it. I poured drinks for the guests, welcomed cousins I hadn't seen in years, and laughed at old family stories. The atmosphere was warm, but my brother's presence felt like a cold wind in the room. He made small comments, quiet enough that most people missed them, but sharp enough to sting. "Nice place," he muttered once, his eyes scanning the living room. "Almost too nice for you." I laughed nervously, brushing it off, but deep down my stomach twisted. Something didn't feel right. Later, during dinner, he raised his glass and gave a strange toast. "To new beginnings," he said, his eyes locking with mine. The words seemed innocent, but the smirk on his face told me they carried a hidden meaning, a warning. Nobody else seemed to notice. The relatives clapped, cheered, and went back to eating. But I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling crawling up my spine. I didn't know it yet, but that toast wasn't just words. It was the start of the chaos that would shatter the night. As I sat at the dinner table, smiling for the sake of appearances, my mind drifted back to the past, the place where all this bitterness began. My brother and I had never been close. From childhood, there was always tension, always competition, always this invisible line between us. I still remember being kids, playing in the backyard. If I scored a goal, he would quit the game. If I brought home a good grade, he'd rip up his test paper and storm into his room. It wasn't just about winning or losing. It was about him always feeling like he was in my shadow. And the truth is, our parents didn't help. They compared us constantly. "Look at your brother. He studies so hard. Why can't you be like him?" they'd say to him. Or, "Your brother is more outgoing. Learn from him," they'd say to me. Every word built a wall between us, brick by brick. As we grew older, the distance only got wider. I worked part-time jobs, saved every dollar, and eventually bought my own place. Meanwhile, he struggled, jumping from one job to another, never finding stability. I tried to support him, even lent him money when he needed it, but instead of gratitude, I got resentment. He saw my house as a symbol of everything he didn't have. Every visit, I noticed how his eyes lingered on the walls, the furniture, the little details I had worked so hard to earn. I told myself I was imagining it, that maybe I was overthinking, but the truth was written all over his face. Jealousy. And tonight at the family party, that old jealousy was back in full force. Every time someone said, "You've done so well for yourself," I could see him shrinking inside. His smile was fake, his laugh hollow. He carried the same anger from our childhood, only now it was sharper, more dangerous. Sitting there, watching him clench his fists as another uncle praised the house, I felt a shiver run down my spine. It was the same feeling I used to get when we were kids, when I knew he was about to lash out. History was repeating itself. Only this time, the fight wasn't about toys or school. This time, it was about my home, and he was ready to take it from me. The evening was going smoothly, or at least that's what everyone thought. Plates were filled, drinks were poured, and laughter echoed through the room. On the surface, it looked like a perfect family gathering. But beneath that cheerful noise, I could feel something boiling. My brother's eyes had been burning holes into me all night, and the smirk on his face grew wider with every passing minute. Then it happened. The music lowered, conversations died down, and he stood up, with his glass in one hand and his other hand raised high. He shouted words that silenced the entire room. "From today, I am the owner of this house. This is mine now. And you," he pointed straight at me, his fingers shaking with rage, "you need to get out." The room froze. Forks clinked against plates. Glasses stopped midair, and everyone turned toward him in complete shock. I laughed nervously at first, thinking maybe it was one of his sick jokes. But his expression was dead serious. His face was red, his eyes wild, and his voice carried the weight of something he had been waiting to say for a long time. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some relatives whispered. Others stared at me as if waiting for my reaction. My heart pounded in my chest. My face grew hot with embarrassment. This was my house, my safe place, and yet here I was being humiliated in front of my entire family. "You're crazy," I managed to say, trying to keep my voice steady. "This house belongs to me. Everyone here knows it." But he didn't back down. Instead, he pulled a folded piece of paper from his pocket and slammed it on the table. "Not anymore," he sneered. "I have proof. This house is mine now." Whispers turned into murmurs, relatives shifting uncomfortably in their seats. Some looked at me with pity, others with doubt. My parents' faces turned pale, frozen between shock and confusion. In that moment, I felt the floor drop from under me. It wasn't just about my house anymore. It was about my dignity, my truth, my entire family's trust. And as I looked at him standing there, victorious in his twisted game, one thing became painfully clear. This night was no longer about celebration. It was about survival. The room erupted into chaos the moment he slammed that paper on the table. Some relatives leaned forward, whispering to each other, their eyes darting between me and him. Others looked away, uncomfortable, as if they had just witnessed something forbidden. "This can't be real," one of my cousins muttered under his breath. But my brother was loving it. He stood tall, puffing his chest out like a conqueror who had just claimed victory. "You all heard me," he said loudly. "This house is mine now. My brother has no right to be here anymore." I picked up the paper with trembling hands. My heart sank as I scanned it. It looked like some kind of property document, but something about it didn't feel right. The text was blurry in places. The signatures didn't look official. It was obvious to me that it was fake. But would anyone else believe that? "Stop this nonsense." I snapped, my voice rising. "This house belongs to me. Everyone here knows how hard I work for it." Some relatives nodded, but others exchanged uncertain glances. Doubt had already been planted, and my brother could see it. He fed off it. "Work for it," he scoffed. "You mean stole it. You think you're better than everyone else, flashing this house like some trophy. But the truth is, you cheated the family to get it, and now I'm setting things right." His words cut deep. I could feel the sting of humiliation as people looked at me with wide, questioning eyes. My parents sat frozen, their faces pale, unable to decide which child to believe. That silence hurt worse than anything. Tears of anger stung my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. "If you think lies can destroy me, you're wrong," I said firmly, my voice shaking but strong enough to carry through the room. But inside, I wasn't sure anymore. My brother had turned a family party into a battlefield, and I was standing alone on one side. And he wasn't finished yet. The air was thick, almost choking. My brother's accusations hung in the room like smoke, poisoning everything. I could see relatives shifting in their chairs, some whispering, some staring at me like I was already guilty. My parents still sat frozen, their silence cutting me deeper than my brother's words. I stood up, my hands clenched at my sides. "Enough," I said, my voice louder than I expected. "You've hated me for years, but this is too far." My brother smirked, leaning against the table. "Oh, so now you're the victim? You've always played that role so well. Poor little you, always working hard, always being the favorite. But you're a fraud, and tonight everyone finally knows it." His words were daggers, each one meant to destroy me. My chest burned with anger. A fraud? You think buying this house was easy? You think the nights I skipped meals, the double shifts, the sacrifices were fake? I earned this. Where were you when I was breaking my back just to save enough? You were busy wasting your chances while I fought for mine. The room went silent again, eyes darting between us like a tennis match. Relatives who had been whispering now stared openly, shocked at the raw truth spilling out. My brother's face twisted. "You stole this house from me. You used a family's name, their trust, and left me with nothing. Admit it." "Stole." I laughed bitterly, though my hands trembled. "The only thing I stole was responsibility, the responsibility you were too afraid to take. You had every chance I had. You threw them away. Don't blame me for the life you wasted." Gasps echoed through the room. Some relatives nodded in agreement, while others avoided eye contact, not wanting to take sides. My brother's smirk cracked, his eyes flashing with rage. "You'll regret saying that," he hissed. "No!" I shot back, locking eyes with him. "You'll regret trying to take what isn't yours." The party wasn't just a celebration anymore. It had turned into a war, and everyone was watching. Just when it felt like the night couldn't get any darker, a voice rose above the tension. It was my uncle, a man who had always been quiet at family gatherings. He cleared his throat and said firmly, "Enough. Let's look at the facts before this destroys everything." Everyone turned toward him. He walked over, picked up the so-called document my brother had thrown on the table, and held it under the light. He adjusted his glasses, scanning the page slowly. The room was so silent that I could hear my own heartbeat. After a long pause, he looked straight at my brother. "This isn't real," he said, his tone sharp. "It's a cheap forgery. Wrong signatures, no official stamps, and even the dates don't make sense. Where did you even get this?" Gasps spread across the room. My brother's face went pale. "Why, you don't know what you're talking about," he stammered, reaching for the paper. But my uncle pulled it back, shaking his head. My father finally spoke, his voice trembling with anger. "Is this true? Did you fake these papers to claim your brother's house?" For the first time that night, my brother's confidence cracked. His eyes darted around the room, searching for support, but all he found were cold, disappointed stares. The relatives who had once whispered in doubt now looked at him with disgust. I stood frozen, relief mixing with heartbreak. The truth was finally out, but the damage had already been done. My brother had tried to ruin me in front of everyone. He slammed his fist on the table, his voice shaking. "This isn't over," he muttered before storming out of the room. The door slammed shut, leaving behind a silence heavier than any scream. At last, the truth was exposed, but so was a betrayal that could never be erased. After my brother stormed out, the party was over. The laughter, the music, the joy, it all disappeared, replaced by a heavy silence that no one dared to break. Relatives quietly gathered their coats, avoiding eye contact, whispering as they left the house. My once proud home now felt like a battlefield, filled with the echoes of betrayal. My parents sat at the table, their faces pale, their eyes full of shame. "We should have stopped this long ago," my father admitted softly. "We let rivalry turn into hatred." My mother reached for my hand, tears in her eyes. "I'm so sorry we didn't defend you when we should have." Their words hurt, but not as much as their silence earlier in the night. The truth may have saved me, but trust is fragile. Once broken, it doesn't return easily. In the days that followed, calls and messages came from relatives. some offering support, others gossiping about what had happened. Everywhere I turned, I could feel the shadow of that night following me. As for my brother, he disappeared for a while, too ashamed to face anyone. But the damage was already done. He had shown me who he truly was. And though he might come back one day with apologies, I knew things between us would never be the same. That night taught me something important. Family can be your greatest strength, but also your deepest wound. And no matter what happens, I will never forget the night my own brother tried to take everything from me.